Hello, climate champions. Welcome to another episode of the Climate Network with me, Deepsha Dhal. Today, we're diving into a topic that sits at the intersection of travel, sustainability, and conservation: ecotourism. And who better to guide us through this conversation than our guest today, Mr. Pradeep Murthy?
Hi.
Hi. Pradeep sir is a passionate advocate for sustainable travel and ecotourism, and he's been actively involved in reshaping the way we think about exploring the world. With a background in both business and environmental initiatives, Sir has a unique perspective on how tourism can not only minimize its environmental footprint, but also actively contribute to the conservation of natural ecosystems and support local communities. Welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, what initially inspired you or your interest in ecotourism, and how did you get away from business development, strategy, and
Right.
management to ecotourism?
Okay. So basically, like most Indian children back in the 70s and the 80s, you're either a doctor or an engineer. It's very clear that you didn't have any other options. Or if you didn't get either of these, then you became something else, right? A chartered accountant and all the other professions that one had in front of them. So for whatever reason, I did my engineering, got a seat, did my engineering. I'm an electronics engineer, by the way.
Oh,
And probably when I did my engineering, I did it in Calicut at the National Institute of Technology there in IT Calicut. And close to Calicut is Wayanad, which is where I live presently and up in the Western Ghats. And probably that's when I kind of started really getting interested in trekking and being outdoors and things like that. Uske pehle, I mean, it was all about being in my grandmother's house. With me, that's my connect with nature also. So she lived in this huge, coconut plantation
wow.
in Kerala, and large old house with plantations, with workers, and streams and ponds and lakes and kind of things. So which is kind of where a lot of my childhood memories are from, and that's probably my connect with the outdoors as well. So RDC came classes were a very low priority, to be honest. It was more for me having fun and going outdoors. So for any excuse I got, I would be going up into the mountains, so which is where we discovered a lot of good mountains there. Post Calicut, I came to Bangalore. I was an IT support engineer, then a marketing person in an IT company. Uh, and then somebody told me that there's something called IIM, and so I did an MBA there from there. Uh, I honestly had no clue I've had no clue about what an MBA was or what an IIM was at all. To me, it was like or 2 years, another 2 years of fun. That is all it was for me. So I went there, and then after that, I went abroad. So then I was for many years a normal corporate guy. I lived in London for the longest time. Did roles in consulting in various consulting companies, Deloitte, Accenture, all these places. And at some point, I kind of just got bored, really, because it's kind of you get into this crazy routine where you're traveling most days. You really don't have any focus in terms of yourself. It's all about work. You're going insane. You're doing 25 days of travel a month. I actually woke up in a panic attack in one hotel somewhere because I had no clue where I was. But all hotel rooms look the same after a while, right? And I woke up. I had no clue which city I was in, what country I was in, what I was doing there. And I remember running around this hotel room trying to figure out because all hotel rooms look the same. They don't say where the hotel is, no. And finally, I found this little pad in the desk of the hotel which said I was in Seoul, right?
Oh,
It was almost like that's one of those crazy moments, right? And just to give you an idea of the scale of travel, I mean, in 6 months I had like 96,000 miles on my frequent flyer card. That is the kind of travel I was doing. So I got bored and I said, can't do this anymore. I literally, at the time, whatever job I was doing, I came home at 6 o'clock in the evening and handed in my resignation at 8 and said, I'm done. मेरे से नहीं होगा.
when was this and where
So
was
this
this?
was 2009. I had been in Bangalore for some time. I was working at a company there in India, which was an India-based company. Was in Bangalore, and to me, this whole, me and a friend had been talking about this. Often, many of us are midlife crisis, right? So we say, whatever I'm doing, I'm fed up with it. I have to do something better, fun, and all this. And we kept going back to what we were doing in college, right? Outdoors, trekking, all these things. After college, by the way, when I was in Bangalore as a support engineer, that gave me plenty of time. And Bangalore was a beautiful city at the time. So I became a rock climber. I used to go rock climbing every day. Then I became a cyclist. Then I did my scuba diving in between. So
Oh.
I'm a a certified scuba diver, became a long distance cyclist, and all these things. So outdoors are always there. And I used to take friends and family out for walks and treks, but nothing professional. And that's when it kind of struck me that, and especially in South India at the time, families didn't really have somebody to take them out and show them nature in the outdoors professionally and safely, right? Most people would just go out. I mean, see, there were a lot of families, especially in the late 2000s, who were coming back to Bangalore, especially. They were NRIs who had lived abroad, coming back for their kids' education, or they were expatriate foreigners who had come and were working in Bangalore, the IT companies. Now, abroad, it's quite common to go out for a weekend of some fun. You might go kayaking, or you might go on a camping trip, or you might go skiing, or whatever it is, right? Something outdoorsy. In India, that is not quite so common, right?
That's true.
Correct. We go visit friends and family. That's it, or relatives, and then we are back. That's what we do most of the time, right? But then that kind of there was an there was a need for people to start having those kind of options, and the important part of it was to make it safe, because especially around that time, people would just go climb. No, let's say you wanted to go climb a hill. You would go somewhere, pay somebody a couple of hundred rupees. He would take you up the hill and come back. But if there was a problem, that guy would be probably the first person to disappear, because he has no training. He just wants to scoot. And that means that and secondly, more importantly, they were usually people like that aren't very literate or conversant or very communicative. He's a person who's showing you the way. He's not a guide, right? It's all about, see, when you visit a place, it's not about just climbing that hill, right? What makes it a memory or an experience is the stories around it. Understanding that place, the flora, the fauna. Why did that hill get that name? Who lives there? What do they do? What are the, or on the nature side, what kind of plants are there? What kind of animals live there? What are visitors? What are not visitors? What is endemic? All these kind of things is what makes it an experience. Just a view, you have a million great views in the world, right?
Yeah.
And you will forget them. You'll see this view today and another view tomorrow, and a better one the day after, and that's gone. But when you connect it to a memory like this, or to content like this, that's when it stays in your head. So that's what I wanted to do. And linking it to ecotourism, honestly speaking, I had no clue about tourism, let alone ecotourism, when I started. I was a business guy, who had been a corporate citizen for a long time, and I just wanted to show people outdoors and the nature. I think my interest in this space was organic. The growth in that interest was organic over the years. I started getting more and more aware of how to do responsible tourism, how to do sustainable tourism. How the local community plays a role, and so on and so forth. I mean, these are not things that anybody taught me, and nor did I know them beforehand. So it was an organic learning process, and that's how we started where we are. So I started Muddy Boots, my company, Muddy Boots Vacations, in 2009. So
Immediately.
yeah, I quit pretty much in 6 months. I had started this because the idea was there in my head, and that was the idea. So what we do is we design a lot of one-day programs. So idea was, instead of staying in the resort and jumping into the pool alone, do that. That's nice for some days, but at least some days come out and spend a day with us. We'll take you on a nature walk, or if you want to hike, we will take you up a hike or a trek, or we will cycle, or we will go on a bamboo rafting trip, or we will go on a nature walk, or we will go on a birding trip, or maybe go to a location and learn about man animal conflict and the tribal families which live there. So different options, but do something that is outdoors.
Curated experiences.
Yes, that's what it was. We then started, as we learned a little bit more about tourism, we realized that there were things called itineraries. And it's not enough if you have one day of experience. People are not coming for one day, they're coming for multiple days. So then we learned how to thread these into an itinerary. So you would have a number of days of activities, which then kind of became a 5-day holiday, or a 6-day holiday, or a 10-day holiday, whatever it was. So those were all learnings. I mean, we had no clue, honestly, what we were doing. I remember the first program we did for a guest. We had 4 guests and 9 of us. We had no clue what we were doing. So yeah, so
That is an amazing start, and look where you are today. For people who don't understand what ecotourism is, can you explain the concept? What are the basic tenets, and what are the core principles?
Deepsha, let's take a step back, right? So ecotourism to me is a subset of what I like to look at as sustainable tourism.
Okay.
Because ecotourism tends to sometimes focus on the nature aspect of it a lot more. To me, sustainable tourism takes a slightly bigger overview picture. And the definition of sustainable tourism that's generally accepted is a very simple thing. It just says better places for people to live in, better places for people to visit. So it's very simple. So it has to work for everybody. So you have to make it a better place where tourists want to go, and you have to make it a better place for those who live there. Now, who live there doesn't mean just the people; it means the plants, the flora, the fauna, and the local communities which live. So it has to become better for everybody. So that kind of gathers all the ideas of ecotourism also into it, right? And the principles are, I'll talk about it probably a little later. But I think the principles are fairly simple, right? Now, you have conservation. That's one of your core goals, right? You need to, facilitate things for people who are coming there to listen. You need to educate them about what is going on. So these are kind of the guiding principles, right? Sadly, what happens often is there are many tourism products and projects which are labeled as ecotourism but are rarely ecotourism in its reality, right? And that I think is something that people need to be a little bit more careful about.
That is such a profound thing to say. I don't know whether you know about this, but in Odisha,
Mm.
we have government regulated ecotourist spots.
Mhm.
And very unfortunately, there is nothing eco about it, or the lack of tourist, which doesn't give it the ecotourism ka tag anymore.
See, like I said, no, it's anytime you want to do ecotourism and you want to see is it really ecotourism or not, you just have to apply these four rules. So, are you conserving the local environment? Are you educating people who come there? Are you making the trip, facilitating a trip there? And are you sustaining the local community? Four questions, simple. If it's doing all of these, then it's ecotourism. If it's not ecotourism.
It sounds simple. It is not. It is definitely not.
That's all it needs to be, no?
Could you tell us how ecotourism benefits local communities?
So I think, see, any tourism, right? Whether it's eco, non-eco, whatever it is, sustainable or whatever it is. To me, any kind of tourism has to benefit the local community. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable, right? And that's reality. Now, when I say it has to be viable and economically viable and beneficial to the local community, if it's not, why would they allow you to do it? You need the support of the local community for it to happen.
But then look at what happened to Goa. People
So
are
that's the
protesting
next
now.
part of it, right? Now, what happens? It starts to benefit the local community. And often, what happens is when you start doing tourism in a particular location, especially in places like India, where it often is organic growth rather than planned growth, it starts to take a life on its own. Right? So it initially looks fantastic because the locals love the tourists coming in. What they were selling for 5 rupees, they're now selling for 50 rupees. Their room, which nobody wanted to rent, is now going for 1,000 rupees a night. Everybody loves it, right? And then it starts to grow. And then that from the tourist side, they go and say, "Oh, we found this undiscovered place, just fantastic. Right? Please come." And today, with the channels of social media and almost instant dispersal of information around the world, somebody puts a great video or a viral video about some unknown location, it takes maybe even not even hours for it to hit a million viewers, right? And suddenly everybody knows about this place, and everybody's rushing here because they want to be the first to experience this place, right? I'll give you a very sad example. A couple of years back in Kerala, you have something called Nila Kurinchi. It's a kind of flower. It's violet blue colored flowers, which blooms only once in 12 years. And the hills get carpeted with this blue color. And it's stunningly beautiful, right? And you have vast hillsides up in the mountains, which are all carpeted with this violet blue flowers. Okay? And remember, it blooms only once in 12 years, and it's a high altitude flower. It doesn't grow on normal lowlands. So there was a bloom that happened in some place, and this got viral. And me, I had gone there, I think in the first 2 or 3 days after it was spotted, and it was still nice, but already I could see that there were far too many people there. And a week later, somebody sent me a photograph of the same location. There was a 2 kilometer line of people. Half the people were in the middle of these fields of flowers. They had trampled the flowers. People were lying down on the flowers and taking photographs, and they had destroyed it. Within a week or 10 days, it was gone. It was destroyed, the whole place. Now, I'm sure in those 10 days, lots of people made lots of money, for sure. But then now we have killed the goose that laid the golden eggs, right? So that comes to the other side of what you just asked, which is over tourism, right? So as I said, initially everybody loves tourism, everything starts looking great. But then after a little while, or little or long while, depending on how it grows, suddenly tourists realize that if they want to eat, fish is not available anymore. It now costs 500 rupees a kilo. What used to cost 50 rupees. If they want to buy a piece of land for themselves, what was available at a few thousand rupees a square foot is now like lakhs of rupees a square foot, and nobody can buy anything anymore. Rentals are not available. Where was I? One of the locations where we are starting operations as our company, Muddy Boots. I remember 4 or 5 years back, there was, lots of rooms available. There weren't any. It was not a tourist spot yet. Last month I was there. We are struggling to find a house to rent for our own team. It's been a month. We are not able to find a house at a reasonable price for us to rent. And that's what happens. And if we can't find it, and we generally have a slightly higher budget than a local might have, and so that means locals are going to struggle to buy. Now, I think what needs to happen is that, see, there are metrics that you can track. Right now, today, what is happening? We all start tourism. It grows and it grows and grows. At some point, it starts to get bad. Nobody notices. It's all shoved under the carpet, and then it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse, and at some point, it just completely explodes, like it has in Goa, as an example, or it's same as happened in Shimla, or so many hill stations, Ooty. All of these are places where it's over tourism and it's killed everything. Right? So I think a better way, which we are hoping that administrators and governments do, and maybe local organizations also should, where they are tracking various metrics. Like, for example, you can look at rising land prices, look at historical trends in land prices, and see if there's suddenly market deviations from the rate of increase of prices. Look at the cost of things, of a basket of things in the market. How is it going up at a faster pace than in the past? Look at infrastructure bottlenecks. Right, are roads getting more crowded faster, or they're let's say bottlenecks during particular times, let's say weekends or holidays, it gets bottlenecked, but other times okay. These are all signs that a place is getting more tourism than it should. Right, and if you start tracking these early on enough, then there may be things that you can do to stop over tourism from exploding. Like, let's say you keep tracking this and you realize that, okay, if you go at continuing at the same rate, we are going to probably be over tourism location in say 3 years or 4 years or whatever. At that point, you can start putting in curbs. Either you can start increasing, you can put in monetary disincentives, like increasing the price of things, or you can bring in more regulatory disincentive, like carrying capacity, and hence limits on the number of people who can enter a certain place. For example, Uti has put in a restriction that says you need a pass to enter. Right, so you might, so the different ways of bringing in lower numbers of tourists, at the same time maybe opening up alternate locations. Okay. Right, because see, everybody is a citizen of India. You can't stop anybody from saying, you can't say, okay, you can come and you can't come in. Who has the right to decide that? Who decides that? So what you need to then do is, okay, you can come in, but sorry, now the gate is closed, so when you come in, you can go there. Give them, open up newer locations. Right, so again, what I've seen is, when you say over tourism, it rarely is over tourism over a large area. So even Goa, it doesn't mean all of Goa has become an over tourism spot. There are hot spots in Goa which have too many tourists. At the same time, there are many parts in Goa where there are no tourists. Right, so look at options that you can open up these places. Right, and maybe divert tourists to those locations which may serve their purposes better. uh, if you look at, and that means that you need to now start segmenting your market. You need to start saying that these kind of tourists are day visitors. They are not visitors who are looking for a deep experience. What they would like is more maybe Instagrammable photographs, and quick quick results, in a sense. Right, maybe there are locations where they can do that without having an impact on the environment, and affecting the biodiversity of the place. So that may be perhaps 80% of your market. And if you can create zones where people can satisfy that happiness, then you're sucked away a large part of your over tourism problem. And at the same time, the 20% who's left, maybe they can get a much better experience, and be able to visit the places that they can and they want to. So I think there are various strategies. The problem right now is nobody's doing anything.
That is exactly what I was
Sorry.
going to ask you. Are people actually following these solutions? The government putting in any policy or regulations to manage the growing problem?
See, not in its entirety. The moment, nobody is. Right. I mean, what's happening even today is knee-jerk responses. Like Goa, it's like it's trying to like they say, lock the stable after the horse is bolted, kind of thing, right? The horse is already gone. And it's not just in India, even abroad. If you look at Venice or even Spain, where we recently read that they didn't want visitors,
Right.
right? Or Venice, where people don't want visitors anymore. They are stopping visitors from coming in at many times. So I think that is all trying to solve the problem after it's happened. If you ask me, is anybody trying to track these and trying to avoid the problem? Not as far as I know. Should we do it? Yes. Right? Maybe Odisha can be the first place to do this. Right?
Interesting.
There are some, I mean, having said that, there are some places where there are things like carrying capacity studies have been carried out, especially in forest related locations, because of court mandated directives. And they have done some carrying capacity studies, and they've come up with various models on how many people can go in to see whatever X it is.
Mhm.
Sadly, often the implementation of that is sometimes okay, sometimes not great. And I can give you examples where one particular location, the carrying capacity study suggested that in a day, say 1,900 people could visit. Now, so what happened is they said per day only 1,900 people are allowed into this location. So what happens is on crowded weekends, between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, 1,900 people come there. After 10 o'clock, it's closed. Now, clearly, that was not the intent of what should have happened, right?
Yeah.
It should have been like, over
Over
the
the
day,
day.
1,900 people can go. And then, the problem is that now we have, instead of having, 3,000 people over the day in 8 or 9 hours, you now have 1,900 people in 2 hours,
2 hours.
which has probably made the whole thing worse. So,
Solutions are creating more
problems,
problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, it's a problem of implementation rather than thought.
But of course, you would definitely have examples where ecotourism has actually helped the community. Could
Oh,
you
yeah.
share some?
Yeah. I mean, one of the greatest big examples in South India, at least, is Periyar.
Mm-hmm.
Periyar had some great, fantastic results. I think, various locations. I mean, even if you get Nagarhole and Kabini, there's been a lot of, good things that ecotourism has brought in. Ourselves, MuddyBoots ourselves, we started bamboo rafting in a small location in Wayanad, in North Kerala. It's a tea town,
Mm-hmm.
and it was unknown in tourism, right? And it took us a little bit of time, but then one of the happiest moments I had was see all the people who poled the raft. It's poled,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not rown. You don't row the bamboo raft, you pole the raft, right? All of them are local boys. They are sons of tea estate pluckers, daily wage laborers, and all that. So we taught them English, we taught them life saving skills, we taught them water rescue and lifeguard skills and all this. Got them all trained up, and whatever we were charging, close to about 50% of that money goes to those boys on every trip. And it worked very well, for not just for the boys who were doing it, but then you had shops which turned up there who were selling chai and biscuits and all these people. There were small cafes which started in that region. Then we started ziplining there in that region. So now that place has become a tourism, adventure tourism, outdoor tourism spot, location, which is known, which people come and ask and come to that location. And Wayanad itself, when we started in 2009, there was no adventure tourism. Nothing.
Amazing.
There was no adventure tourism whatsoever. There's not even a concept of adventure tourism. And today, I think, I sometimes think if it was too much, but if it's over tourism. But today, Wayanad is known as a place for adventure tourism and
True.
being outdoors. But in 2009, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And I remember even my friends and people asked me, "What exactly are you trying to do?"
That's a good question. And I think now they have the answer. You're creating pockets of amazing tourist spots, helping the local communities and the ecosystems and economies as well.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so, at least.
So I was asking you about the floods. Yes.
So Wayanad floods. So first thing is that there was no floods.
Okay.
This was uh, um, let's say a cloud burst in one small region in a very remote corner of Wayanad district. Wayanad is a district, by the way.
Mhm.
It's a fairly large district. It's about 2,400 square kilometers. So it's not a small place. And this happened in two small villages in the southeast corner of Wayanad. Another kilometer far away, it would not have been in Wayanad district.
Mhm.
Okay? I know those hills well. I've been trekking there since 1990. So I know the hills where they started. What happened there was a natural disaster, right? And all evidence that we have at the moment, forget the hype and the what people are saying. If you look at the evidence, the scientific evidence that available as to why that happened, 590 millimeters of rain got dumped on that area in 48 hours. Now, if you want a idea of how much rainfall that is, anything over 50, 60 millimeters of rain becomes quite heavy for us. Anything over 100 starts to become extremely heavy. By the time you're 150 or something, it's now classified as, extremely, extremely heavy rainfall. Right? This was 590, 4 or 5 times that kind of rain. Okay? Now, why did that happen? That happened because of climate change. Right? Now, you ask me, how does climate change relate to tourism? This is a great example. So, what's happening in the Arabian Sea is earlier nimbus clouds were forming over the Arabian Sea, which are not very thick. So, you must have seen during the monsoon, you have these dark, thick black clouds, which are very low. Now, they're not very high clouds, right? So, they are relatively shallow clouds which carry a certain amount of rain and they dump their rain and they go on. Now, because of climate change, what is now forming is not these kind of nimbus clouds. What's forming is stratocumulus nimbus clouds. Right? So these are close to 15 kilometers, up to 15 kilometers tall. So imagine you now have a 15-kilometer tall column of water. The amount of water in that is stupendous. And that is what is coming and bursting. Why is that happening? It didn't, those clouds are not forming because somebody built a homestay in that region, right? Yeah. It's happening because of global warming and climate change across the world. We are all responsible for it. That happened there. This the landslide, as far as evidence shows, happened originated at an altitude of about 6,000 feet or so or above. Now that's pretty high, right? There is no human habitation there whatsoever. I can guarantee it because I've been there. I've seen that place from a distance. I mean, getting to that location where this originated is almost impossible. I know this place because I've gone to the peaks higher above that. The highest peak in that region is about 8,000 feet up. So even from there, getting to this region where the landslide originated is extremely difficult. So there is no human habitation there. It is extremely dense tropical forest. So there are no resorts there. There is no cultivation there. There is no land clearing there. Nothing has happened there. Nobody's touched it. So that is where this landslide originated, and then it came down. Given that about over 20 acres of land actually peeled off, and it came down 6,000 feet, the momentum it had was enormous, and it washed away that entire location. Now, where does tourism have a role to play in this? Well, you can say that tourism was the cause for the losses to increase. Because of tourism, you can say people went and lived there, and it's a beautiful region, right? And people went and settled there or tried to do something around tourism there. But then, on the flip side, they also were looking for livelihoods. The people who are doing these things in tourism in that area are not multi corporate resorts and huge chains. They are local people who just built homestays. Uh, so my point therefore is, climate change is important. It can impact tourism, but it's also important to remember that not everything that tourism does is bad. True. Right? It gives you economic livelihoods. Sadly, what happened though in Wayanad is the second half of what happened. The landslide itself was a natural disaster. Subsequently, what happened was a man-made disaster. Because sadly, the media and the rest of the people obviously reported on this very, very widely and very enthusiastically for various reasons. And it dominated our news for several years for several days across the country. And today, everybody thinks that Wayanad is somewhere near the Lakshadweep Islands, right? So it's not. So there was nothing wrong in Wayanad. It did impact a certain small segment of people, which who are getting help. I mean, we are all trying to help. We are all, deeply saddened that they are our brothers and sisters. I've not gone to that location because I don't think I'll be able to bear seeing that location after being there, right? So it's not that we don't care, but it doesn't also mean that the rest of the 8 lakh people who live in Wayanad should follow down the same path. And that's what's happening because tourism's disappeared.
Tourism has disappeared, you said?
Because tourists are not coming.
They're scared?
Yes, they are very, very scared. So most resorts in Wayanad remained largely empty in August. September occupancies have been very low. Thankfully, things are looking up in October. I'll give you other examples. It's not just resorts and tourists, right? It's what the people who are impacted are is everybody. So the vegetable seller who supplies fruits and vegetables to the resorts, the meat seller, the auto driver, the bus driver, the guy who sells pickles on the street, on the roadside near tourism spots, little mess houses that people run. These are all people who don't have a plan B. They're Most of them are daily wage. They work on a daily wages basis, right? They make some money that day and they have to go day to day, and they are the people who have been affected. The big resort owners will live. They're not going to sleep hungry. But these people might. Many of them might. That's what the big tragedy is. As an example, there's this guy who makes banana chips. Mm. He's a friend of mine. And generally in August, September, he would, on any given day, he would be frying between 130 to 150 kilos of banana chips. Right? Today, you know how much he fries? 10. 6. Wow. So 6 kilos from 150 kilos, he's doing 6 kilos. 6 kilos of banana chips, it sells for around 300 rupees a kilo. So 1800 rupees a day is his total revenue. Now you take out rent for the shop, take out some money for his assistant, take out the cost of producing the banana chips, the oil, and the rest of it. What is he going to be left with? A couple of hundred rupees? True. So what happens then? That part is the man-made disaster. So, I mean, we are all trying now to get people to advertise the fact that there is nothing wrong in Wayanad. It's fine, right? You can have still. I mean, everything's still there. So last week I had a friend. She's a actress. I asked her to come down and spend 2 days. She did very charitably. She and a camera crew came, spent 2 days covering various places in Wayanad. She's in the Kannada film industry. She came down to some reels and shoots and things like that. So we had a blogger who came and covered many locations for us. The government is trying to do some programs. India Tourism is trying to help us with some road shows in various cities. But it is still going to take time for people's memories to move away from all those horrible visuals we saw on TV for days. That's true. At the moment, it takes time. They'll forget it. It's not that they won't, but the problem is what happens until then. How many people are going to be surviving that until few then. Months?
This is very similar to Sikkim. What happened in Sikkim? You work very closely with the government. Could you tell us about that experience?
See, the government is like, it takes time. That's the first thing you learn, right? Everything takes time. Uh, in the private industry, you think of something to do, you can move very swiftly, generally speaking. With the government, it isn't quite like that. But then the things they can do are also much, much more powerful. True. Right? An example would be, let's say, adventure tourism, which is I'm fundamentally adventure tour operator. So 2000, mid 2010s, 2014, 15 is when I realized, looked around and I realized that things like zip lines and all that were getting more popular. Right? We built the first zip line in South India back in 2010. 2016, I think we opened our first public zip line where you could walk in, and the others were all inside resorts. So, no, 2016, 17 is when I realized that this was getting more popular. And it was moving from being a passion led industry to an investor led industry. And the difference is that, the investor led industry is more interested on returns. Nothing wrong with returns. Every business has to be viable financially. But then it's a question of where you're putting more focus on. How willing are you to cut corners? Right? So I went and told the government that, thankfully, the tourism secretary was a friend of mine at the time in Kerala. And I went and had a chat with him and I said, we need to do something about this. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. So a little while later, the government set up a small advisory group. Okay. And told us, you guys think and figure out what you think you should do. It was all from industry with government intervention, with government. It was small group of people. So there was government people and industry people in that. So we started talking and we came up with a set of regulations, which was written by the industry, which safety regulations, which said, what kind of people do you need to be having in your adventure tourist, in your adventure activities? What equipment should be you be using? What standard operating procedures should you have in place? What documentation should you have? Things like that. Right? So we came up with these safety regulations for about 32 different activities, and then government took it. munched through it for a little while. They put in some procedures as to how to apply for it, etc., etc. And then in 2020, 2000 early 2020, government made it a rule. It was passed in Parliament in the Kerala cabinet, and they made it a rule that any person in Kerala who wants to run adventure tourism activities, they need to register themselves. They need to go through inspection, and they'll get a certificate which is valid for 2 years. So that helps in many ways, right?
True.
Because it helps one ensure
Legitimacy.
your customers don't get hurt. It gives customers confidence. It gives something that is marketable, because the moment you hear there's a government backed initiative
True.
to
Legitimacy.
it's legitimacy, credibility, right? And customers feel, okay, great, why do we all do activities in New Zealand but not in India, right? Because we feel the government
Safety.
there is involved, right? I'm sure, or I have a lot more certainty that I will not die if I jump out of a plane in New Zealand. In India, I'm not so sure, right? Correct. So
Yeah.
that's the main reason why, because there is a safety backing. You feel, you feel that
Confident.
confident about it. And that's the same thing that we need to have in India. Maybe Kerala is the first place. It also gives you things like insurance, insurance providers. So, for example, if there's an accident, typically in India, the first thing that government does is they will, for example, ban all trekking.
That's
Correct?
true.
This is the
Yeah.
first thing that they do. Why? Right? Because see, if you look at driving a car on the road, there are accidents that happens every day.
Yep.
Right? Does that mean the government says nobody drive cars anymore? No. Why? Because you have a car that the government says you need to have a car with which follows these conditions. It should have, your fitness certificate should be in place, and your tires have to be like this, etc., etc. And it should be driven by a person with a driving license. So as long as you fulfill all these conditions, you are legitimately allowed to drive a car. Not even the government can randomly say you can't drive a car. Right?
Correct.
Now, why can't they say you can randomly stop trekking? Because there is nothing that says whether you're a good operator or a bad operator. But if you have a set of regulation and you're
Standardizations.
certified and you are in compliance with whatever the government said you must be in compliance with, then you can legitimately go to court and say, why am I being stopped from doing what I'm supposed to be doing? You don't have a right to stop me. I've done everything that you have told me to. I've got the license. So you can't stop me, right? So which gives operators strength to go back and talk to government about. Earlier you can't. So I think it strengthens everybody. I think it's the
That's
right thing to
correct.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
So if government comes in, yes, but you need the right set of people in government to support it. Thankfully, at the time, we had the right people in Kerala who got behind us, trusted us, and believed in us, and we were able to get this through. It's happening in some of the cities, in some of the states. Maharashtra has made some movement in that space. Some other states, recently last year, we made a roadmap for adventure tourism in Gujarat. I presented that to the Minister of Tourism in Gujarat. So there is movement happening. So let's see.
That is great. That is so good. How do you see ecotourism contributing to the larger movement of global sustainability and environmental awareness? Because one of the major things that you were talking about is going into the nature.
So see, I mean, I think it is already there. Diksha. I mean, see, the reason I took out my phone and what I was looking for, I just wanted to, grab a particular statistic which I want to share with you. So if I look at, statistics recently, right, the question that they asked at a particular one of the surveys, I think this is Skift, if I'm not mistaken. What are the societal issues or concerns that you consider most important or impactful in today's world, particularly in relation to the travel industry, right? 48% of people said that the impact of tourism in communities and cultural preservation and climate change and environmental sustainability. That's 48% of the respondents said that is the top two things that people should be thinking about, right? Another example, they said, do you agree or disagree with the statement which said that it is important to me to choose travel businesses that prioritize environmentally sustainable business practices, right? Uh, well over 60-70% of the respondents strongly agreed with this, agreed or strongly agreed with this statement. Interestingly, a large percentage of that was from India, right? Which means even a domestic market is now waking up to this fact and saying sustainability is important. It's no longer just the international traveler who thinks and our Indian guys are doing whatever they feel like. I think that paradigm is also
Mentality
changing,
is
right?
changing.
So I think, how is it going to impact? I think that is the only way forward, right? I think people have realized you can't do tourism the old way. I mean, and I think that is everywhere. No, in our airports, for example, today earlier you would have plastic cups, plastic trays. Today you have trays made out of sugarcane waste and
Yeah.
paper. If you look at most hotels today, there aren't most. I mean, most hotels today prefer glass bottles and refillable jugs rather than plastic. So I think that change is already, I hope, happening. You have I don't think plastic straws are very popular nowadays, right? Most of
True.
them use paper straws, but then I still don't understand why they have a plastic that semicircular cap on top of it. What is the need of that? You put a paper straw and then you put this plastic topi on
Plastic
top of it.
topi.
Why? Right? So some of it is still lip service, but at least something is happening.
What is your hope for the future of ecotourism in the country?
See, I mean, hope to yeah, we all have hopes, right? How much it will become reality, I don't know, right? But let me put it this way, okay? Um, if you look at the way we all used to take holidays, like 15 years back, right? If somebody told you let's go to place X, wherever it was, right? Typically what you would do is, you would go find a hotel, book a room, and then look at what are the things to
To
do
do
around that
around.
place. This is how typically people went and had holidays. Today, if you tell somebody, let's go to X place X, the first thing he'll ask you is, what are we going to do there?
True.
The question is not, where am I going to stay? Because stay has become almost a commodity at almost every price range. You
Mm.
are almost guaranteed to find a room, whether you want a room for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000,
Correct.
20,000, you will find a room. Because there are hotels at every budget today, almost everywhere, right? So then the more important part of it becomes experiential. Your experience of being there, how are you going to remember this place, what are the memories you're going to create there, okay? And I think those, in my hope, is that will become more and more nature related rather than becoming man-made related, rather than I went to a mall and or I went and did a roller coaster. Instead of those kind of things, hopefully there'll be more nature related experiences than that.
And thank you so much
Pleasure.
for coming down and talking to us today. My last question to you is, where can we learn more about your work? What are your handles? Where can we follow you?
MuddyBoots Vacations.
On
We are
Instagram.
there on Instagram. We have a Facebook. We have a website. But honestly speaking, we are terrible at marketing. We do what we do, but we don't know how to tell people about it. So if anybody wants us to join us on social media, please give us a shout.
Thank you so
My
much, sir.
pleasure. Thanks, Dipsha. Thanks to the team.